What's up, horror lovers? All right, let's dive headfirst into this one. A ghost story from a World War II-era hospital in the UK that never got the memo it was supposed to be temporary. The walls have been patched up, the paint refreshed, but make no mistake, the bones of the building are still the same ones that saw the war, and whatever walked those halls back then might still be walking them now. Tonight, we follow the steps of a nurse on a winter night shift. And trust me, this one will make you rethink ever working the graveyard shift in an old hospital. It was a kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes the fluorescent light seem even harsher. Most patients were resting quietly, the rhythmic beeping of monitors mixing with the occasional cough. Then, around 2:30 in the morning, the peace shattered. A scream, raw, desperate, tore through the stillness from a side room. The patient in there wasn't the type to hallucinate. No dementia, no confusion, nothing that would explain the terror in her voice. And yet, she was screaming as if her life depended on it. The nurse rushed in with a colleague, expecting maybe a medical emergency. But what they found was something far stranger. The patient's eyes were wide, locked onto the foot of her bed. Between frantic breaths, she choked out the words. There was a man with a bag over his head. He was standing right there. The air in the room felt wrong, heavy, thick, as if something unseen was pressing down on it. The nurse tried to soothe her, assuring her there was no one there, but even she could feel it. That creeping, unnatural shift in the atmosphere. Once the patient calmed, the two nurses turned to leave, and that's when they saw it. Out in the hallway, through the faint glow of the corridor lights, a shadowy figure slipped across their view, heading toward a pair of double doors tucked into an alcove. At first, it almost seemed like another staff member. But there was something off. No footsteps. No sound at all. Just a dark, human-shaped silhouette gliding forward. Here's the part that really chills the blood. Those double doors? They were always locked. Not just closed, but secured with a key. And the way the figure moved, it didn't slow down, didn't fumble with a lock. It just passed through and was gone. Both nurses froze, their minds racing to make sense of it. The seconds ticked by and reality caught up. There was no physical way someone could have gone through those doors like that. It wasn't until they exchanged glances that the truth neither of them wanted to say out loud settled in. Whatever they had just seen wasn't human. They didn't need to run a test or check a chart. The old building had just reminded them it still had secrets and residents who weren't listed on the ward. Their steps back to the nurse's station felt heavier, their ears tuned to every creak and shuffle in the distance. Old hospitals carry more than history. They carry imprints. Places that have seen suffering, loss, and death tend to hold on to those echoes. In World War II, this very building would have been filled with wounded soldiers, the air thick with fear and pain. Maybe the man with a bag over his head was some long-lost patient, trapped in his final moments. Or maybe something much darker. For the rest of the shift, every flicker of light, every shadow stretching along the corridor made the nurses tense. They avoided walking past those double doors unless absolutely necessary, and even then they kept their pace quick. It wasn't just about what they saw. It was about how the air itself had seemed to change when the figure appeared, like the building was holding its breath. The patient slept fitfully after that, mumbling now and then about the man, as if he might come back. The nurses didn't tell her what they saw. How could they? What comfort is there in knowing your fears are real? By morning, the corridors were bright again, the day staff bustling around, oblivious to the midnight trespasser. The figure was gone, but the memory it lingered like a shadow that never fades. And here's the thing. This wasn't the nurse's only brush with the unexplained in that hospital. In fact, it was just one of 3 ghostly encounters she's had during her 5 years there. Which begs the question, if a place was built for war, soaked in fear and pain from the start, does it ever truly heal? Or does it just keep its wounds hidden until the right moment? To show you who's still walking its halls? Sleep tight, horror lovers. And if you ever find yourself alone in an old hospital at 3 a.m., maybe don't look too hard at the end of the hallway. Picture this. Michigan, late 90s, a Tulane ribbon of blacktop cutting through fields so flat the wind sounds like it's dragging a shovel. Out there sat a little island of fluorescence called Stop and Shop, my second home, from 3 p.m. to midnight. No street lights, no foot traffic. Just a pump canopy buzzing like an anxious hornet, and the cold glare of coolers that never blinked. Houses were scattered. One catty-corner farmhouse, one place way down the road, and a store next door that locked up at 5 p.m., leaving me alone with the register and the hum of the soda fridges. Easy money, I told myself. Good hours if you like quiet. But quiet in the country isn't silent. It's a blank film waiting for something to burn through it. Tonight, we're going to talk about the burn, and why you should always listen when the building itself starts to talk. First 9 months? Boring in the kind of way that makes you invent songs for the price scanner. The rhythm of evenings was simple. Lottery guy at 6:10, Marlboro lady at 7:05. Pickup trucks idling like patient wolves by 9:30. You start to trust the pattern out there. Then one night, a hair before midnight, the back room cleared its throat. Not a skitter, not a drip, a clatter, as if a handful of aluminum soles were being pitched into a metal bin. Sharp, hollow, distant but too close. I froze halfway through facing the chip aisle, fingers dusted with nacho orange, and felt that cool coil in my stomach tug. I checked, of course. Pushed through the swinging door into the stockroom, lights humming, returnables stacked to chest height, stale beer breath in the air. No mice, no raccoons, no prankster kid. Just a compressor's heartbeat and rows of cans that looked too still. I told myself it was nothing. Country stores are full of drafts and tired bolts, right? The noise came back around 1 a.m. Same throw, same bounce, same exact number of metallic breaths before silence. When my manager arrived at 5, I reported it with a laugh, like I was telling her the building had hiccups. She brought in pest control. No nests, no droppings. No, her exact words, entry points for wildlife, for walls intact, floor like a chalkboard clean of tracks. The guy in the khaki shrugged and said maybe expansion, maybe the ice machine settling. I nodded, because people like explanations the way they like receipts, proof of a transaction. But the back room owed me nothing, and the receipt it gave me was a sound I could not return. Hold on, because the worst was still warming up on the other side of midnight. A few nights later, I'm restocking the cooler, hip deep in glass and frost, when the bell over the door gives that lazy jingle. I slide out with a crate and see them. 5 guys, for chatty, 1 quiet. The quiet one plants himself beside my register with his back to me, right hand sunk in the belly of his jacket, like he's keeping a small animal asleep. Hispanic, late 20s maybe, face unreadable. The other 4, corn-fed, pale, high on the thrill of being a pack. Fan out for beer, chips, gummy worms, the whole neon pantry. One of them drops an armload onto the counter and, in a voice so polite it could sell you insurance, says, "This is a robbery." I smiled like a clerk in a training video. "Let me help you get the money out," I said, lifted the whole till, set it on the counter, and with my leg, like a bored dancer marking steps, tapped the silent alarm. They thanked me. I mean that. They actually said thanks, gathered their party favors, and melted into the dark like it had been holding a door for them. Police arrived late enough for the coffee to taste like cardboard. I gave my statement. I went home and watched the sunrise scrape the frost off my apartment window. 2 days off per policy. When I came back, the store looked exactly the same, like a crime can't bruise linoleum. 11-something drifted into almost 12, and the back room spoke again. Same clatter, steel drum heartbeat, counting down. By then I had a superstition and a stopwatch. The sound belonged to midnight. You learn to feel time in your skin on those shifts. You feel it in the light's flickering microscopic glitches, in the refrigerator's size, in the empty road that suddenly looks like a vein. I told myself yet again it was pipes. I stocked the gum. I waited. At exactly 12 a.m., the bell sang and 5 shadows colored in. Same quiet guy at my elbow, hand sleeping in his pocket. Same courteous, dead-eyed spokesman. I didn't waste words. Till out. Alarm tapped. Receipts fluttering like white moths in the AIC stream. They left with their thanks, and afterward the store swallowed the sound of them like it never learned the word chew. I told the cops the timing. I said midnight like it was a killer's name. They wrote it down, nodding like men do when they don't want to say coincidence. When I hung up the employee phone, the back room gave one small tinkle, as if to say, "You're welcome." The thing about patterns is they make liars of you. First you say it's nothing, then you admit it's something, then you realize it's someone. And by then, you're standing on a tile you should have stepped off 20 minutes ago. I moved a day's shift, more sun, more noise, fewer omens pretending to be housekeeping. But fate loves a cover charge. Crystal, let's call her that, went into labor mid-shift one evening, and I got the call. I drove over for the rescue at 8 p.m., the sky the color of soaked denim. The pumps glowed like a spaceship trying to land. I slipped behind the counter, and the store welcomed me with the smell of coffee syrup and tire dust. It's fine, I told myself. It's early. Then the minutes started doing that elastic thing, stretching and snapping back, and right before the clock's double zeros rolled over, the back room threw its aluminum bouquet. Crisp, deliberate, 5 beats like knuckles on metal. I didn't breathe. At 12 o'clock on the nose, the door chimed, and in came my traveling band of polite thieves. Quiet man took his post. Spokesman emptied the vowels out of the word robbery. I did the dance. Alarm. Till. Thanks. When the cruiser's blues were painting the pumps, I called my manager and said it flat. Either you come run the rest of tonight, or I'm closing and going home. She told me if I left, I was fired. Weighed that against staying. Handed my keys to the officer, like a magician returning a borrowed ring. Lock up before you leave. I said, I've been fired. And I stepped out into a night that felt suddenly honest. Country dark is good at making you feel watched. But once you choose yourself, even the field seemed to unclench. The robberies kept coming, 6 total before the stakeout, because momentum is a religion for some men. They were always courteous. Always on time. Criminals with customer service. If you ever wonder what it sounds like when a building grows a conscience, I can tell you. It sounds like cans being tossed. Exactly once. Exactly when you need to know. Let me talk about that back room for a second. It was a mausoleum of aluminum, a cathedral of stale yeast and nicked knuckles. The air back there tasted sweet sour like a spilled summer. The concrete floor kept secrets in gray. And the compressor, Lord, the compressor, thunking and humming with a rhythm that made you think a heart someone forgot to bury. Stacks of returnables towered in crooked columns, labels faded, rings of condensation ghosted onto cardboard flats. There was a draft you couldn't source, cool as a hand on the nape of your neck. And sometimes standing. Still, you'd hear one can sigh against another like teeth tapping. I started calling the room the Tin Chapel. Started saying thank you to it under my breath the way you thank a crossing light for changing. Laugh if you want. But the Tin Chapel was the only thing that told me I was about to meet 5 men who carried midnight in their pockets. Midnight itself took on a shape out there. You could feel it approach, like a train nobody else could hear. The last truck would cough away, and the road would turn to ribbon. The canopy would flicker, recover, then hum too loud. Fluorescence would make the candy bars look like museum exhibits. Every surface gleamed a little too hard, like it had been polished for an audience. And in that crisp, a question would float up. What if the store knows before we do? We make fun of gut feelings, call them doom scrolling for the soul. But sometimes your walls are wiser. The noise was never frantic. It was a head count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A metal metronome. In the distance, a dog might bark. Somewhere, a porch light might blink awake. I learned to ask, okay, who's coming through my door? And the answer was always the same silhouettes, like a constellation I could trace with my eyes closed. After I left nights, I ran into Crystal, baby on her hip, mascara smudged into a raccoon mask that only sleep can fix. She told me she got hit twice, at noon, middle of the day, sun high, school buses yawning past. And right before both of those noon-hour raids, you know what she heard? The same clatter from the Tin Chapel. Same 5-count toss into nothing. That sealed it for me. This wasn't a nocturne. It was a nerve, something the bones of that place that tingled when intention crossed the property line. Maybe the building had learned their footsteps. Maybe trouble has a pressure like weather, and walls can feel it better than skin. Or maybe I was just assigning meaning, because meaning is a flashlight in a cornfield. Either way, the message stayed simple. If the cans sing, brace yourself. And keep your leg near the button. 2 months later, the cops got tired of paperwork with my name on it. They parked an unmarked across the street, tucked into the dark like a second moon. At 12 o'clock, the chorus line returned, polite as church ushers, and for once, someone else was listening to the music. When the cuffs clicked, the building felt like it exhaled. Even the cooler fans sounded loose-jawed and lazy for the first time in weeks. The officers told me the crew said thanks to them, too. Imagine getting arrested by men you're trying to charm. There's a particular weirdness when evil shows up with manners. It's scarier, honestly, because you can brace for rage. You can't brace for please and thank you. As they let the quiet one out, he glanced at the back room door. Just a flick, like he'd heard it, too, but didn't want to admit he wasn't the only hunter in the building. I wish I could tell you the Tin Chapel shut up after that. It didn't. Months later, as just another customer, I came in for gas and a coffee that tasted like burnt toast dipped in chocolate. 11:59 was sharpening itself when I heard it. The toss, the bounce, the 5 count. My skin pebble-pricked. Nobody suspicious in sight. No 5 shadows drawing long. I turned just in time to see a teenager wander toward the pumps with a lit cigarette and a slosh of gasoline licking the concrete like a dog. "Hey!" I barked too loud, and he jumped, dropping the cig into a dark puddle that could have been a headline. He crushed it under his heel, red in the face. Was the store warning me again? Or did it just like playing guardian angel when boredom set in? Either way, that kid walked away embarrassed, not exploded. Some miracles smell like gasoline and aluminum. So what was it? Ghost? Pressure shift? A nest of feral nickels rolling around back there? I'm not here to sell you a theory. I'm here to sell you the habit of listening. That's the black little joke in all this. The scariest part wasn't the robberies. It was how easy it would have been to ignore the soundtrack. We're wired to explain away the weird. It's mice. It's pipes. It's me being dramatic. Sure, but sometimes the building is the only co-worker you've got, and it's waving frantically behind the safety glass. If your workplace starts tapping a message in tin and echo, pay attention. Keep your exits mapped. Keep your keys where they kiss your palm. And if 5 polite men ever thank you for doing your job, consider thanking whatever warned you they were coming. We'll land this plane where we started, a lone island of light, a road like a vein and a clock that ticks in metal. If you ever find yourself on graveyard shift, know this: silence isn't empty. It's crowded with things that want to keep you breathing. Sometimes they look like luck. Sometimes they sound like cans in a dark room. What's up, horror lovers, is that we tell these stories not just to spook you, but to sharpen you. The next time your house, your car, your store clears its throat, don't roll your eyes. Lean in, because somewhere on the other side of midnight or noon, intention is lacing up its boots, and your walls might already have the headline. Listen close. The warning rarely repeats itself for free. Tonight, we're cracking open a story that's darker than the bottom of a beer barrel. And trust me, this brew is bitter. Imagine working alone in the dead of night, surrounded by the soft hum of refrigeration units, the smell of malt and hops clinging to the air, and a darkness so thick it feels like it's soaking into your skin. That's where our tale begins. Third shift security at a quiet brewery. A job that should have been boring, right? Well, boring wasn't on the menu, because from night one, something felt off. Not the usual. It's quiet and creepy. Kind of off. More like someone's watching you from the shadows. Off. Now. The property had 2 main buildings, the brewery itself and the bar about 200 feet away. The bar was where third shift guards like to hang out since it had a perfect vantage point over the facility. Inside, the lights worked on motion sensors, flicking on with every step. On this particular night, our guard had just finished a routine patrol. Everything seemed normal until he stepped into the bar. The lights in the main room and back room were off, the back room door slightly ajar. He walked in, the motion sensors did their thing, and that's when his stomach dropped. Standing in the doorway to the back room was something. humanoid, but stretched in all the wrong ways. Arms that dangle far too low, hair spilling over its upper body like a curtain of shadow. The doorway itself seemed almost too small for it. Yet there it stood, silent and still. It didn't sway, it didn't breathe. It just was. Every instinct screamed to run, but he stayed frozen. And then a blink, one heartbeat. Gone. No footsteps, no sound. Nothing but an empty doorway and the low buzz of the lights. The next day, curiosity won over fear. He started asking the day shift crew if they'd ever seen something in the bar. Most just brushed him off, but a few gave a look that said they knew. They didn't want to talk about it, didn't even want to acknowledge it. Like speaking its name might call it closer. That silence made the thing worse. Because if it's not just in your head, that means it's real. And real means it can find you again. Weeks passed. It didn't stay a one-time nightmare. More encounters happened, always in the bar. A quick glimpse of movement in a corner mirror. A shadow passing by a doorway when no one was there. The faint feeling of something tall standing just behind him. The guard started to think, maybe this thing was bound to the bar. Maybe whatever it was couldn't step outside that space. That little theory was comforting. Until the night it proved him wrong. In the brewery's main public area, there was this double-door airlock system. You scan your card, the outer door opens, you step inside, and after 30 seconds both doors seal. A security measure, simple enough. But the outer door had this bad habit of sticking. That night, he stood inside the airlock, waiting for the stubborn thing to finally shut. The inside door closed behind him with a heavy click. Then, slowly, the outer door creaked shut. And that's when he saw it. Not through glass in front of him, but in the reflection. The thing was there, towering over him in that narrow space, its long arms hanging like dead vines, its head tilted ever so slightly, as if studying him. It didn't move. It didn't need to. The air was so heavy it was like breathing water. The door clicked fully shut, and he spun around. Nothing. Just empty space where, a second ago, something impossible had been. He didn't bother trying to figure out how it got there. He didn't even want to know. All he knew was that the airlock had become a trap, one he'd never step into again without the lights on and a quick escape route planned. He changed his routine. No more waiting there for doors to close. Now he went inside, turned the lights on full blast, and faced the door as it sealed. Whatever this thing was, he wasn't giving it another chance to corner him. But here's the worst part, horror lovers. Shadows don't care about walls. And this one doesn't seem to care about rules. The thing hasn't been seen anywhere else on camera, hasn't tripped a single motion sensor except when he's been there to see it. It's personal. Whatever's in that bar, whatever followed him into that airlock, it knows him now. And if it can follow once, it can follow again. He's just waiting for the night it decides to step even closer. So, next time you're working alone, maybe in some quiet building where the air feels heavy and the shadows seem too deep, remember the story. Because it's not the noise you should fear, it's the silence, the way it stretches, the way it waits. And when the lights flicker back on, if there's something too tall for the doorway, with arms that scrape low and hair hiding its face, don't blink. You might not want to see where it goes when it's gone. The nightmare drags us into the cold, echoing corridors of a naval air station at 2 a.m., where the hum of machinery sleeps, but something else doesn't. Imagine walking the empty halls of a building that services advanced aircraft. No roaring engines, no chattering mechanics, just you and the hum of your own thoughts. You're the last overnight shift watch, 1 month from discharge, and already counting the days until you're free. But then you hear them, voices. Faint, muffled conversations drifting out from the mechanic shop. No problem, right? Maybe the guys are pulling an all-nighter. But when you open that door, every light is dead. The room is cold in the hallway, and there's no one there. You shrug it off. Naval buildings have echoes, right? But it gnaws at you. So you go to the front and tell the senior watch. He barely looks up from his seat and says, "No one signed in tonight. Just you and me here." His words hang in the air like the static before a lightning strike. And you realize this isn't just quiet night shift weird. This is wrong. Dead wrong. You try to laugh it off, Maybe it was an open window or some radio left on. But the memory of those voices won't fade, like they've been stitched into the back of your mind. An hour crawls by, the halls stretching longer, the shadows pooling thicker. Then it happens again. You're doing another loop when the voices return. Calm, low, conversational, like men leaning over a wing, debating torque settings. You push the door open slowly, expecting to see a few tired mechanics in coveralls. Instead, nothing. The same dead room, the same smell of oil and steel, the same untouched shadows. Your footsteps sound too loud in the silence, and your skin prickles with that animal sense that you're being watched. You leave faster this time, your boots clicking like a countdown. Back up front, the senior watch smirks at you like you're making it up, but there's no faking the tightness in your chest, the way your hands won't stop fidgeting. Maybe you tell yourself you're tired, your brain inventing sounds just to break the monotony. But deep down, you know better. Some sounds aren't made by the living. Then comes the third time. It's 4 a.m., the hour where even the bravest parts of you start to doze off. You're sitting with a senior watch, the TV flickering static blue shadows across the room. And then, clear as a hammer strike, you hear it, tools clanging on the shop floor, the hollow ring of metal hitting an engine block. A sound so sharp it cuts through the air, freezing you mid-breath. The senior watch looks at you with wide eyes. This time, he hears it too. "Go check it out," he says. His voice is low, almost daring you. You stare back, incredulous. "No way," you tell him, your voice tight. "I'm out in a month. You want to see what's in there? Be my guest." He chuckles, like you're overreacting, but the way he avoids meeting your eyes tells you he's not so sure. He turns back to the TV, pretending the sound never happened. But the air between you both feels heavy now, like the building itself is listening. The clanging stops, and the silence afterward is somehow worse. Every groan of the old building becomes a whisper in your ear. You keep glancing down the hall toward the mechanic's shop door, half expecting it to swing open on its own. For the rest of the shift, you both keep your distance from it. No more rounds, no more brave talk. Just two men waiting for sunrise like it's a rescue ship. The next day, you make a point of finding mechanics. You describe what you heard. Every metallic scream, every phantom footstep. They laugh, but not in a mocking way. More like they've heard this before. "Nope," one of them says. "Tools haven't moved. No one was here last night." You check for yourself. Everything's in place. And that's when your stomach sinks, because you realize the truth. Whatever made those noises wasn't moving tools you could see. Later, one of the older mechanics pulls you aside. He says, almost in a whisper, that the building used to be a hangar annex back in the day, before it was converted. There was an accident once, engine test gone wrong. A crew got trapped inside, and the smoke took them before anyone could open the bay. He doesn't go into detail, just says sometimes people hear them working late, like they never left. You want to laugh it off, but you can't. That night, lie in your rack, you replay the sounds in your head, the low voices, the clatter of metal, the hollow bang on the engine block. You tell yourself it's just an old story, just a draft, just a building settling. But as you drift towards sleep, you swear you can hear it again, soft, distant, and getting closer. And you realize with a chill you can't shake that some night shifts never really end. This isn't just another creepy prison ghost story. It's one of those moments that makes you question your own sanity and maybe your safety. Imagine working the night shift, the kind where the silence in the corridors feels heavier than the locked steel doors. It's just you, the faint hum of the lights, and the distant echo of something you hope is just the building settling. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes something's watching you, and it doesn't care that you're the one with the keys. It started at 1:45 a.m., a time when the world outside is dead asleep, and the prison feels like it's holding its breath. I was at my desk in the control station, the kind with a full view of the day room. That's when I saw him. Top tier, standing perfectly still behind the glass. White t-shirt, dead eyes locked on me like he was reading my thoughts. No movement, no blinking, just staring. The kind of stare that makes the hair on your neck curl up and whisper, Don't look away. The thing is, I knew every inmate in that block, and this guy wasn't supposed to be out. My stomach dropped. I got up, pushed through the door, and walked into the day room. It was empty. No sound, no footsteps, no trace that anyone had been there. I checked the tier doors, locked solid. That should have been the end of it. But that prickling feeling, like someone was still watching me, wouldn't let go. The silence seemed louder now, the shadows heavier. I went back to my desk, trying to calm my breathing, and started writing in the logbook. Routine, safe, normal. Then, out of instinct, I looked up again, and there he was, not on the top tier this time. Bottom day room, pressed close to the glass, laughing. Not the kind of laugh you hear when someone's amused, but the kind that says they know something you don't. The kind that doesn't care about locks, cameras, or rules. My blood went cold. I froze, watching his mouth move in that silent, jagged way, the sound swallowed by the glass. His eyes glinted in the dim light, almost daring me to come closer. My brain screamed that this couldn't be real. If I had just checked the place, and everything was locked, then how was he down there? I thought about radioing for backup, but part of me didn't want anyone else to see whatever this was. Like saying it out loud would make it worse. Instead, I took the coward's way out. I stepped back from the desk, my boots feeling like they weighed 50 pounds each, and walked straight out of that wing. The air felt different the moment I crossed into the other side of the unit. Lighter, warmer, almost like whatever was back there couldn't follow me. I didn't go back. Not that night. Not alone. Some doors are meant to stay closed. To this day, I still think about his face. The white shirt, the too wide smile, the way his body seemed solid one moment and gone the next. I've worked enough nights to know the tricks the mind can play in the dark. But this wasn't my mind. My mind can't lock and unlock doors. My mind can't leave cold handprints on the glass. My mind can't laugh from a room that's supposed to be empty. So if you ever find yourself alone on a late shift, walking past a day room window, and you see someone staring at you who shouldn't be there, keep walking. Don't look twice. Don't even blink. Because some inmates don't need keys to move around at night, and some of them were never on the roster to begin with.